Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is for you. My name is Justin Coolimp, and that whole host of names you've always heard me joke about. And today, I got a couple of more builds for you. Some of them are going to fall into the same categories that we've seen a lot of builds. The first one is kind of my take on basically keeping the cooldown as low as possible for your racks. So I call it Rakk Attack Flak. Yeah, I know there's iteration there. I like it. Now, first thing I want to say for this build is pet choice here doesn't really matter. Or at least not that I can see from while I'm working through it and building it. So, first off, we do have our racks. That's going to be right here. Bam, bam, bam. Dive bomb these mothers. Now, on our first row, we don't have anything that reduces our cooldown. So we want to pick up something that just helps us out in general. So we're going to take up, I think Interplanetary Stalker is going to be better. I take it better over Second Intention. Both are kill skills, hunter kill skills. But I think this one would be better for us. On the next line, we take head count. Critical hit, action skill has a chance to be reduced. Excellent skill for what we're trying to do here. Sorry about the coffee. Now, that leaves us 2 points to figure out what we're going to do with. And I couldn't figure out anything good for picking up the rest of this. So I just dropped it 2 into Leave No Trace. Since we want to be nailing critical hits here, this would help us out. Now, I do happen to agree with a lot of people. Two Fang is an amazing skill. You should pick it up. If you're building into this deep, I think it's almost a mandatory. Next, we have a couple things where we don't have anything else, but I've been really pushing for everyone to have at least one capstone. So we got the hunter skills have the longer effects, so that's going to be big game. And we pick up the most dangerous game as well to push down into the next tier. And that's where we're going to get our action skill damage increase off of Grim Harvest. And then we're going to push down into Megavore. Now, because we're building for the Rakk Attack, this is my basic build from right here. Now, what also we want to take is as our augments or chevrons, whatever you want to call them. I call them augments because it says it right there. Is we're going to take Flock and Load, and we're going to take Accelerate. It's going to reduce our, increase our cooldown rate, so we're going to be getting them back faster. Plus gives us our third charge. We're hitting with 2 additional rack, so 4 rack, 3 times. That's 12 hits. Now, next we have to go over into Stalker. And Stalker's another situation where on our first line, our first tier, we don't have a lot to really focus in on. To go ahead and find something that just, bam, that is our number one thing here. So we're going to begin with increasing our maximum health and getting some health regeneration. I know some people don't like that. They think you get hit too hard in the upper levels, but anything that helps me get back into the fight quicker, I like. This right here is one of the things that we wanted, because this helps reduce our action cooldown skill. Or our action skill cooldown time. Blah. Sorry, can't say that right. Now, couple things to notice. We don't have any restrictions on this, so there's no maximum number of stacks we can get for it. And we don't see anything that says it has diminishing returns. So, this is a kill skill. But it's going to be valuable because if we can take out some rank and file right there, we keep building it up. You may have noticed I kind of breezed over a couple of things, like picking up the most dangerous game. At this point, a lot of us have watched a lot of these videos repetitively, or at least I have. If you check out my skill builds, you'll see 3 tabs open at almost all times. One about theory crafting, one about builds, and just one about Borderlands, because I deep dive in on stuff. Next thing is we need to get down to the next tier, then to the next tier. Because after we pick up this, there's not much more that really builds towards cooldown reduction that we have. Not that's easily accessible. This is picked up, of course, because it does increase the duration, but not because of that. We pick it up because it increases our gun damage. Because when we come back over to here, we don't have anything that increases our cooldown, our action skill cooldown reduction. So really, you have about, let's see, let's take a few steps back. So we're going to pick up the last thing I think you must pick up, and that's going to be your pet reviving. You have 10 points to continue to spread around. You can go into durability by picking up these skills. You could come over here, increase damage again, increase damage again. But you really do have 10 points to mess around with and figure out what you want to do based off of the basic build. Like I said, I like to come down to lick the wounds, because if you're soloing, that right there is going to make the day for you. If you've watched someone like Professor Broman and King Galathans, and I forget the other pair that was streaming this morning when I recorded this, they had the pet revive them regularly. Like, it wasn't a chance. They come over almost immediately and try to start reviving you. So at 10 points, you have a lot to mess around with. You could pick up that last point here in the most dangerous game as an example. With this build, though, I don't see the actual pet mattering. And a lot of that's because it depends on how much you want to invest down here. Now, let's say you want to pick up the SMG Jabber. And this is like where we have some creative freedom on what we want to do. You'd want to buy down into here and pick this up. But unless you want to pick up the targeting one or the Fast and the Furious, Hidden Machine or the Fast and the Furious, you're going to be stuck at a point where it's like, okay, well, what do I do from here? And I just want to point that out. But you have about 9 points at this point to fiddle around with what you want. And again, all we're trying to do is take that 18 seconds for a charge to revive and reduce it down to maybe 5. Just keep on pounding them. And with Megavore, even if you're rocking an SMG, statistically, mind you, I'm going to put a big old statistically, you're going to be 1 in 5 shots getting a crit. And that's going to help out with this. And again, with that, we still only have that 30% chance, but 2 seconds every, let's say, 15 shots, because you're using a fast-firing SMG. Or let's say, God forbid, fingers crossed, the Double Anarchy comes back, which is an SMG, which has variable fire rates. But you get one of those super fast firing rate ones, and you're dropping 4 rounds a second, or 4 rounds per trigger pull, and all of a sudden you're emptying. Well, I can't speak. You're clearing out your magazines of 28 rounds in like a second and a half or 2-3 seconds. This right here is going to trigger real fast, and it's going to trigger over and over again, especially if you've got Megavore. Now, I do want to say that this is my idea for the Rakk Attack. I know some other people may have other ideas on how it could work. This is just how I see it. Now, I have another build for you, because I like to do a lot of builds for Flak, because I'm going to be maining Flak and I'm going to be experimenting. But here we have... Oh, I had a name. Oh, Melting Amara. Yeah, it's iteration again, literation again, and I'm sorry, I enjoy words like that. Now, first things we're going to have to do is... Oh, I forgot to add this in here. Sorry. So, first off, depending on how you want to begin the build, because right now we just want to get her built up where she's doing a ton of damage, I suggest beginning over here. And either picking up... I like picking up the Root to Rise, but that's because I'm down for extra health. You could possibly pick up Personal Space for 3 points and then spend 1.1 point. However you want to do this, it doesn't really matter. For me personally, I like a little bit more survivability here, so I'm going to pick up Root to Rise. But this is what it's about. It's about Blight Tiger, because Melting Amara is all about melting faces. Now, I went back, and you have two options here in my opinion. You can either pick up Arms Deal now, or you can come back to it. But you only want to pick up Arms Deal now if you absolutely want to get the Relevation at the moment. If you don't want to get to it exactly at that moment, you can come back to it later after we've picked up Blight Tiger. Then we're going to jump over here. First things first, we're going to pick up either 5 stacks in Anima or 5 stacks in Infusion. Again, doesn't really matter. So as we move on, we are going to begin with Phase Grasp because it does a little bit of damage, but it locks them in place or does damage to people. Now, if you want to, you could probably use Phase Slam in the beginning just because it does that damage that you want to do. But it is something to consider. Next, we want to move on to Tempest. Now, the reason we're picking up Tempest is for the shock damage, because we're going to be focusing so much into the corrosion. I mean, we're going to be spreading dots around. That's happening. You need to get used to it. That's going to be a lot of Amara's job, is just hitting people with elemental damage. We're going to go ahead and work on their shields as well. We want to kill those shields every single time. Now, you have two options here. You can either pick up Dread real quick, or you can go ahead and max out Wildfire, because we want to spread around those afflictions, shock damage, and the blight damage. And then after this, we are just building up anything we can do to spread it around a little bit more. I didn't pick up Deep Well here, because although it might help out with reload times and things like that, it's something that's optional. It's not needed for the build. However, I do want to pick up Ricochet. And the reason we want to pick up Ricochet is if we miss, hey, possibility of hitting someone else. Or if we hit someone, possibility of hitting someone else. And we're not so much worried about the damage, we're worried about the dot. We also want to pick up Catharsis. And that's because someone dies. Whenever Amara triggers an elemental effect, when that enemy dies, he explodes, and we get a little nova of elemental damage done. So even more of a chance to Wildfire, Anima, or... The reason we come back to Infusion, in my opinion, is because it's damage that's converted into action skill damage, and it's not needed right away. Then we want to get Conflux. Now, how many points you get in this is up to you. For this build, I only bought into 4 points because I already had other things to build up to this situation. Which helps us with those other enemies that might not be good for corrosive damage, like having to ignite someone. I mean, it's 28 to 35% chance depending on how much you want to invest into it. And then we're going to get Forceful Expression. And of course that does bonus elemental damage based off of the action skill. Now, the actual ability we want in the end is Ties That Bind. Because it's going to lock the enemy in place, and enemies near that person are locked together. So if they have an elemental effect on them, what's a good chance of happening? That disease is going to spread, and that's the reason she's called Melting Amara. Now, I did come back down here, and I got 5 points in Arm Steel. Again, any of these would work for you. I think Arm Steel is going to be best, because it increases that splash damage and takes reduced splash damage, so it's very good. I heard some videos talking about people barrel trolling, because you can kick them around now. I'm not worried about the barrel trolling. I'm just worried about enemies dropping nukes on me. Since we can drop nukes on them, it's bound to happen. But even right here, this would be another good alternative. Right here's another good alternative. I don't like the missing health portion of it, but you know what, it works. But the reason we wanted to get this is the Nova here. Again, we're pumping out a Nova based off of the action skill. That right there is going to create a lot of energy, a lot of push out. Now, to be honest, I call it Melting Amara, but it can be Fire Amara, Electric Amara. It doesn't matter. If you want to go different types of builds for this, you can. I think this one is going to be one of the more popular ones, or at least is the way that the general conception of a lot in the Fist of Elements. I think we're going to see a lot of elemental Amaras, where they either buy in for here, or they buy into here because they want the action skill. Because even phase casts could possibly work here. Like if we took the points out of here and we moved it over into Mystical Assault, we've spent, what, 10 points? So that 10 points would get us down to 3rd tier, which can bounce that around and even pick up Ascendance. So depending on which skill we have, we could even make that work for what we want to do. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed these builds. I probably won't be doing them every day. You'll probably see me keep up the schedule that I have now every few days. With school, with trying to find a job, it's hard to keep focused in on getting the videos out because life is just draining. I don't mean to throw that on you guys, but it is, and I do my best. Plus, after the 75 days of Kingdom Hearts, I learned I can't do daily content. That is not this guy. This guy can do a lot of things. I cannot do daily content. But with that said, tell me what you think down below about the builds. Either for Rakk Attack Flak or for Melting Amara. Tell me what you think about them, and we can see what we can do. You'll also see down in the bottom of the description will be the 2 links here. And it's going to be the long link, not the short links. So do be prepared for that. And as always, good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time of day it is for you. And may joy be to absolutely every last one of you. Like, follow, obey. And I still feel like a tool saying that. And I'll always feel like a tool saying that.